Today we have assembled here to listen to Professor Sathya Prakash Varanashi, and it's indeed my pleasure to introduce Professor Sathya Prakash Varanashi. I am one of the ardent follower of his architectural designs. Professor Varanashi studied architecture in Bangalore, urban design in School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, and heritage conservation at University of York. Right from his early days, he was attracted to designs ideas rooted in cost, culture, climate, and creativity. His 30-year-old firm, Sathya Consultants, designs cost conscious, culturally appropriate, and eco friendly architecture, exploring varied design alternatives towards living with nature. Professor Varanashi is presently a professor at KS School of Architecture, Bangalore, and is involved with academics, writings, events, and NGO inclinations. He is a TEDx speaker with many other YouTube videos and blog. Now, over to you, sir.
Thanks, Suresh. If not for your invitation, I wouldn't have been here. But nice to meet you, Director Saab, Dr. Ghosh. And it was nice to know that you were at Ayuk earlier. And I still remember the day I walked around Ayuka one day. The whole campus I was walking. It was a great place to walk around. And now you are here. It's nice to know that you are here now with us. This is not the first time I'm standing on a podium. But today my heartbeat has gone up slight bit. Walked in, the whole idea of this. And when Naresh told me this is the table on which Raman used to give his talk, I was a little nervous. Last 3 days, including today, has been a little unusual experience for me. It's very personal. I have experienced it. You have not, but I'll just want to share you very, very quickly in the given time, hope to cover it. These kind of day-to-day experiences very often gives us new insights into what we are doing and what we should have been doing and we should not have been doing and why we are doing what we are doing very often. I'm going to quote 4 people. I'll mention their name, it doesn't matter, or I can hide their name. I'll hide the name because it's a public talk. One person is a homeless man who has been roaming on the streets in front of our house in ISRO layout, ISRO layout, who has been a homeless man, and then over the time he got into schizophrenia and all that. For the last about 2 years we have been trying to rehabilitate him, 3 years now. It was very difficult, but 2 months ago we got a pretext to help him in rehabilitating him, and some of us did crowdfunding and we put him in a rehabilitation center. And 2 months into rehabilitation center, and yesterday I went to meet him. It's a very touching moment. Possibly what could be the lowest level of human existence that I have seen in my life is of this homeless man. I don't need to tell you how he lives. He used to sleep on footpaths, I don't know, whenever we never know when he takes bath. He would eat whatever is available, sometimes what is rotten on the footpath, sometimes what people give him. Schizophrenic, sometimes he was shouting on the streets. From that to what he has become in the last 2 months opened up a new eye for me to look at the human beings. The person with whom I went to the place and the person who helped me admitting him is a gardener in our house. He and all his 3 siblings are all illiterate. They come from a border village in Chittoor between Andhra and Karnataka. And in the car, though he comes to help us in the garden, but because we were there for 1 hour together in the car, I asked him and he was narrating the story of not only his life but also his siblings and his family, how they struggled, how there were days there was nothing to eat in their small village house, how their mother, then the father dies at a young age, and how the mother moves to Bangalore, struggles to bring them up, and then whatever happened around. Even today, all of them are illiterates, and they earn around, he and his brothers, on average, they earn around 15, 20, 25,000 rupees a month doing odd jobs. question of survival. The third person I'm going to mention is, in the last, say, about 2.5 months, I've been part of a land deal at a certain role, and there is the so-called buyer who is a politician into real estate, and he's also into construction in a small town in the Tumkur district. And it's been such an experience dealing with this person. The kind of lies people say, the kind of greed with which people talk, how they go back on their words, how they have no ethics of any kind. And the fourth person I have not met with, but I was told he's an extremely good person. I was standing in front of his house last night around 8:30, and I was there with a friend of mine who also happens to be a scientist, but with ISRO at one time. And he was telling me, this person came and how, they had a lot of misgivings about him when he built this G+3 construction with a swimming pool and a spa and a health club on the last floor, a home theater for 15 people, which is better than some of the theaters around for experiences in the next floor. But he was talking about how he's extremely good as a person, and the kind of business he runs, ethical business. Why am I narrating it? We all believe that sustainability is to do with, many of you sitting here are scientists and research, and today a whole lot of data is available on the internet. There's so much is happening about studying right from the time 1960s, when we had one of those early books. The list will come shortly later in the slides. Some of the early books on sustainability or ecology at large were being spoken about. And my first major exposure to this was back in 1992 when the first Rio conference was held. I had no idea about the word sustainability till then. And I happened to listen to a lot of proceedings or happened to read a lot about what happened in the Rio conference in 1992. And then, thanks to the influence Laurie Baker had on me, Shankar Kanade had on me, and our own office practice happened to, kind of step into this, in those days, less trodden path, designing with nature. So we said we'll design with nature, what may come. And we started refusing projects which were completely, what now I know the word, carbon footprint or embodied energy. In those days I didn't know the name. So I thought, those kind of projects will not work with, but we did a few, I assume, we did a few. So we tend to attach the word sustainability, and incidentally the word, I don't personally subscribe to the word. I don't like the word sustainability, I use the word eco-friendly, but anyway. So we tend to think this word sustainability and ecology, environmental related issues are all to do with research, data collection, analysis, talk about what will happen because of this. Of course, yes, it's to do with that. And talk about the future, what will happen, talk about global warming, talk about greenhouse gas emission, talk about the particle, now it's more than 400 ppm. So all about this, what we talk about, the particle count and many of them, there are a whole lot of other data available. Some more technical words will also come shortly on the slides. But for quite some time, and there are ways of mitigating them we all talk about, and I'm influenced by Gandhi and Laurie Baker and J. Krishnamurti and others. So for the last about 10 years, I have minimized my flights. So I have hardly take any flight now, unless very, very necessary. And most often nowadays, if there's an offer from somewhere, if I have to fly, I simply say I don't want to come. That's it. In the last 3 months, I refused an offer from Bhopal, I've refused an offer from Surat, and one from Chandigarh. I said, sorry, I want to be in Bangalore, I don't want to come. That's it. But it comes at a cost. I lose out on exposure, I lose out on meeting people, I lose out on learning more from peer group, and I lose out on promoting myself, if that's an agenda at all. But then, sometimes one feels the reality is not in any of them. It's not that I don't appreciate Greta Thunberg for her great new initiatives. It's not that one is not appreciating the IPCC reports. It's not that one is questioning the need for COP, the Conference of Parties. They're all needed. For some of you may not know them, I won't explain much now. Conference of Parties is one of the most mega international event held every year. If anybody asks me in my limited knowledge, what could be the event with the maximum carbon footprint, one single event with the maximum carbon footprint in the world today is the coming together of the world leaders to discuss how to reduce carbon footprint. Conference of Parties, being held since 1999 or so. IPCC reports from around 2001, I think, or 2 maybe, I can't recollect exactly when, around that time. Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, IPCC reports. So now we have all these happening around. All these are happening around. Needed in some level. There's a little hypocrisy in them, paradox in them. That's okay. But what I really notice is the real need to look at ecology and the environment starts at this level, which I'm speaking about. I've shared the whole spectrum. Yesterday night when I stood in front of that house, it must have cost at least 4 to 5 crores for the house. He could be in the ethical business, whoever owns the house, it's not the question, but how much should a family have to live on? Even if it is ethical money. See, there are 4 words when it comes to economics: earnings, savings. Okay, if I say so, we earn money, of course, we spend money, so there is also expenditure. So we earn, we spend, we save, and then we invest. Most of our invest is surplus income. We don't need that money for our day-to-day living. It's a surplus, hence we tend to invest. And why you invest? To get more profits out of it. We make more profits, we again reinvest. Anyway, this cycle goes on. But whatever is said, from a homeless man to the one who possibly has a 5 crore house with swimming pool and spa and gym and home theater, that's a spectrum. And sustainability is somewhere in between this spectrum, if one may use the word sustainability. And personally, one can use the word sustainability from different definitions. But for today, I'm leaving with you with 3 words which I have been believing now for the last about 7-8 years. Stability, continuity, affordability. The fundamental definitions of eco-friendliness for me. Stability. We all want stable government, stable family, stable relationship, stable income, stable whatever. Stability. Continuity. If I'm eating mango today, the same mango plant must have been there for millions of years ago. Continuity. River, continuity. Nature, continuity. Everywhere, continuity. Society, again we need continuity of some sorts. Stability. Without stability, there is no continuity, incidentally. That's a connected one. Third word is affordability. And affordability, of course, by all. By all. And if you go by the Gandhian principle, by the poorest of the poor. And if we are not looking at these 3 as the foundations of sustainability, well, we will achieve sustainability, but at a different level. And of course, there are many other definitions. RR is there, reduce, reuse, recycle, or there are many other ways. Equity, society, and that another word is there for the talk of the 3 words there. Equity is a great word, of course. So it's all there. But personally, I've been looking at this subject from these 3 words of late. Anyway, this is some general introduction I'm giving because, incidentally, whatever you're going to see, there's a disclaimer here. See, many of these things which one is going to share with you, most of you already know. There's nothing new one is going to share. I have no claim for any knowledge. I have no claim for anything new. It's just that one has been introspecting a lot, and I personally believe today innovation is important. And most of you sitting here are into innovation. Innovation is important, but I personally believe introspection is more important. Why? What does innovation lead to? Innovation leads to a lot of extra new knowledge for us. And the knowledge comes, of course, from research, knowledge comes from imagination, knowledge comes from exploration, knowledge comes from experience. From many such things, knowledge comes. Very important. Incidentally, my own practice is an architecture practice. So for us, imagination is very important. Very, very important. But to my students where I teach in my office, I often say, imagination is important. But the implication of the design is even more important. It's nice to see Saraswati and Anand Subramaniam sitting here in front of us, me and you. He has been part of RRI for 32 years. And when he walked up to us, the kind of house they gave us a brief, I said, yes, this is going to be an interesting house. But then it is not to be designed by an imagination. We have to design by the implication of the design. Science is also something like that. Do we look at the consequences of our research? Do we look at what are we creating and the consequences? So science has a consequence. Imagination has an implication. Are we looking at it deeply? That's more important. Well, these are all varied words which comes. I mean, incidentally, most of these words we are seeing here are not in the common day-to-day language of an architect practicing eco-friendly architecture. Many of them are also not in the common day-to-day language of the many of the environmentalists who are fighting for the ecological balance, or many journalists. They don't know many of these words. I picked it up from the syllabus of MSc Environmental Science program. From there one picked up many of these. Some of them are okay, community ecology and all one can understand, much easier to understand. So even though one has been using the word climate and environment, etc., in this presentation at large, but these words are, frankly speaking, when people come to us for a house, the moment we use these words, even though climate is a very commonly used word, ecology is a very commonly used word, with all due respect to all the potential house owners and other project owners who have come to us, I don't think majority of them, sorry to say it in a public forum, majority of them do not deeply understand the implication of ecology and such words around. Now, where is the mistake? There has been no attempt to create that awareness in the larger public. I'm not talking of the illiterate people like whom I mentioned about. I'm talking of the educated people. The ecological awareness, ecological consciousness is still very low amongst the people whom I am working with. Mostly I'm saying it. This is, of course, a kind of a contradiction also. These capabilities are increasing multifold today. We are able to study hypotheses, research, new theories. They all have become very, very deep. But incidentally, most of them are not yet in the day-to-day knowledge, in the realm of common people, I'm saying. I remember with some of the scientist friends of mine with whom I used to interact much at one time. Some of them used to say that much has happened in Indian science. I hope you may agree, sir, or you may not agree. You're sitting here in front of me. I'm only quoting these scientist friends of mine. They were saying that we scientists have not taken science adequately enough to the common people. And then they were talking of these open house programs where anybody can come, interact with the scientists, have exhibitions, displays and show, etc. I think RRI is also doing them, IASC is doing them, Jain Center is doing them, I assume. I'm not sure who all does it, but NCVS. So I have friends in some of these places. They say it's not adequate. But it's a very esoteric field. Taking science to people is not very easy. But taking nature to people, we are part of nature, nature is part of us. So we should not be discussing the need to take nature to people. The very statement sounds, there's a paradox, it's an oxymoron. What do you mean by taking nature to people? People are nature. So what do you mean by taking nature to people? But taking nature to people has today become a necessity. Somewhere it is missing. And if you look at these two words, nature of the earth and nature of people. And there is this nice word we use called human nature. And often one wonders why the word nature is there as part of the word human nature when we know that human nature has nothing to do with the nature as such. Most of human nature is anti-nature. And we use the word human nature. In a way we are killing the word nature itself. There's nothing natural about human nature, or mostly there's nothing natural about human nature today. At least the way I am living in Bangalore as an urbanite. I don't want to speak about others. The way I live, there's a huge paradox. I'm a hypocrite. I'm not able to walk my talk most often. Try, attempt, yes, but most often is a failure. It's very difficult to live with nature, living in Bangalore. So there is this contradiction between the two words, human nature and nature itself, the nature of nature, let's say. But that sounds still better, nature of nature and human nature. So somewhere this gap is increasing. We may be at another level, we may talk about the increasing gap between the rich and the poor in India. Well, it's happening, we know that. The increasing gap between the intellectuals and the illiterates of India. Yes, it is increasing. This gap is increasing. But do we talk about the gap between nature and people? We are still not talking adequately about the gap between humans and the nature. Not that by doing a few little houses here and there in our office architecture we can mitigate this. Sorry, we can't. But we try. We try to say in what way we can try to educate the people who come to us, and try to ensure that the buildings we are into are slightly more eco-friendly, as much more eco-friendly as we can. But incidentally, I know some of you may agree, may not agree, but you're not into technology per se, you're into science and research. I'm among those few people who believe that technology is anti-ecology. May not be 100%, may not be 100%, but largely technology is anti-ecology. If anybody asks for proof, sorry, I may not be able to give proofs per se, because my life is not into research and innovation and data collection and validation and all of them. I'm into introspection and intuition. But whether we say by introspection and intuition, or whether we say by innovation and data collection, somewhere technology is against ecology. If that's the case, I remember this. A long time ago, my older brother, who's into organic farming for about 30 years plus now, long time ago, when one day I was sitting with him and talking, he said, "What are you talking? The moment you dig the earth and plant a tree, you're already destroying the earth," he said. I said, "Yeah, that's true. The very act of digging is destroying earth," he said. And then I said, "Yes, it is true." So, there is a kind of a paradox in everything that you're doing around. But anyway, one can justify that by different ways of saying it. Now, there's this word shift at the end, somewhere it is there in the title, science to culture, and then culture to living. Let's go back in history, 100,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens put their first steps into the Indian subcontinent. Some people say it happened 75,000 years ago, some people say it's whatever. I'm just taking it as around 80,000, 100,000 years ago. If you consider the evolution of Homo sapiens is supposed to be around 200,000 years ago. So the way people lived was as any other natural animals. And every animal has what you call as a life cycle. I'm sure most of you in your younger days would have studied it. I learnt in a small remote village in Kannada medium, and the place I was studying, where I was born and brought up to my age of 10, there was no electricity also. We are in Kannada what is called as a kugrama. No connectivity, no electricity, one of those kugramas till my 10th age. So I was studying in that village school. And we used to have this word called life cycle. So they'll speak about the life cycle of a pig, life cycle of a butterfly, etc., etc. Isn't it? I'm pretty sure 75,000 years ago, human beings also had a life cycle which was given to us by Mother Nature. Now we don't have a life cycle, we have a lifestyle. If anybody asks what is the life cycle of a human being, there is no real life cycle connected. It's a disconnected, fragmented life cycle we have. But we have a lifestyle. Now, the moment this lifestyle has come about, we are no more living with nature, of course. Now, is it possible to go back to that? If anybody asks you, or if anybody says, "Sathya, what are you talking here? Are you talking about going back in 75,000 years ago and say have the same kind of life cycle?" I will say, no, not possible. But this is a matter of analysis. One has just gone into it to understand why we are living the way we are living. Why are we living? And why we are not doing what we should be doing. Of course, this line, it is basically to say how people should live. So I have used some strong words here like clusters of research, etc. I mean, this is applicable to anybody. In our office, in our architecture also, it is there very much. So the point then is, I'll just go back to that. So, this whole shift which is required, we need to, it's not that we have to completely move away. No. One is only thinking, is it possible to create science to culture, culture to living? Living was the primordial. Living happened 100,000 years ago with nature. Then culture came. Culture. When culture was predominantly ruling us, we don't know when, maybe 25,000 years ago, maybe 20,000 years ago. Of course, the archaeological proof we have for Indian culture is around 5,000 years. So Harappa, Mohenjo-daro civilization. But pretty sure 15,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, already some kind of a human societal culture must have evolved, though we don't have any documentation. For over 5,000, 7,000 years, we have proper documentation how the culture has evolved. There was also a science in those days, of course, Stone Age, the Bronze Age. We had science, but not as predominant as it is today. So this whole idea of ecological science awareness becoming cultural awareness, can that lead to increased awareness about ecology? Sorry for putting it so strongly. See, when I'm saying we, it also includes me. Please remember that. What you learn from nature is that we are not learning from nature. A while ago, walked with director Ghosh, Naresh, and others, and you people have already installed two, and many more, I believe, come as a bird feeders. What is that? That act of placing the bird feed, either with food or grains or water, is an act of listening to nature. It's a way to give something back to nature, what you have taken from nature. One thing about architecture itself, with confession I'm saying it, most of the buildings we are doing, if we were to use the words building with nature, building by nature, building of nature, OF. So most of what we are doing is off. We are taking from nature. We are not giving anything back to nature. To some extent, yes, we like to live with nature. To some extent, we are trying. I'm so happy today to stand here for another reason. This auditorium is not an air-conditioned auditorium. Thank you very much for keeping it as a non-AC auditorium. We all do know that air conditioning is not good for health, wealth, or the earth. But air conditioning is one of the fastest spreading human lifestyle in the whole world. And air conditioning is not really air conditioning, is actually people conditioning, is actually mind conditioning, is body conditioning. I have good friends of mine who never had air conditioning. They put air conditioning in their office. They started driving an AC car. Within 6 months, 1 year, their body lost the tolerance to stand the variation in the temperature. 4 degree to 40 degree, as I commonly use this word. Very often I say this. Human beings can live anywhere from 4 degrees to 40 degrees with minor adjustments in clothing and food habits and the daytime working habits. And we lose it. Air conditioning is more habit forming than alcohol. It's so fast. Bad for health, wealth, and the earth. We still do it. Anyway, back to this. So we are not learning from nature in so many ways. Need not elaborate as of today, right away now here. But then, coming back to the way we live as an architect, if I were to look at it, living with climate has always been the way we all lived with. And these three living culture of Kashmir, Kerala, and Rajasthan, I'm just giving those three quick words here to say how even today when we go to villages, we can find that lifestyle. Well, I'm still using the word lifestyle because the life cycle of human beings is impossible to trace now. But the lifestyle of human beings in many places is still with nature. We may use bigger words, climate. You can use all kinds of words, climate change. But nature is a very simple word to use. And these living cultures, which are rooted around nature, is where we can learn from. So one is not trying to say one should go back by 75,000 years. No. One can go back by 100 years. One can go back by 50 years. One can even go back by 30 years. If you look at the history of air conditioning, one small example. 30 years ago, how much of air conditioning was in Bangalore and how much is today? Sorry, I have no quantification, but I am sure it must be about 50 times, 100 times of what it was maybe 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Because there was no air conditioning 100 years ago, did human beings perish because of temperature? No, we all have survived. Look at the way air travel is increasing everywhere. Sorry not to name anybody, but every other nation in the world, including India today, takes huge pride in saying everybody is now flying. Everybody should fly. Today, if you make everybody on the earth fly, there will be neither earth nor human beings to fly. There will be no human beings left to fly anywhere. That's what we are heading to. It's not that we don't have the awareness of what's happening around, but we are, as many people have said, we are on a path of self-destruction. I don't want to use the word extinction yet, but at least self-destruction. But then there are many reasons why we are doing what we are doing, or comically to say why we are doing what we should not be doing. I'll come to that very briefly later on. Anyway, these are some of these slides are to talk about again nature and culture. That's about the life cycle I'm speaking about a while ago. Where does it come from? The second part, okay, the first part, education, exposure, aspirations, affordability. But look at the second line, second paragraph when it's written. I believe in this. We are living against nature, empowered by technology. First word. Technology has enabled travel, gadgets, manufacturing, transporting, communicating, remote controlling. One can go on adding this. One can adding many more. Manufacturing, one sector which is often ignored. There's a difference between making and manufacturing. A bird makes a nest. A bird does not manufacture a nest. A carpenter makes a chair. A carpenter does not manufacture a chair. Difference between the two. As long as our human society was making, the overall carbon footprint of the human society was less. But when manufacturing started, it started to reverse the equation. The greenhouse gas emissions increased. To say it very simply, global warming increased and climate change increased. So the fact that this technology induced way of living has been one of the major causes, and then we can list out many more after the what technology. And technology, we can talk about electricity, we can talk about, there are many more. Now this was actually an attempt, power of climate on our society. There are three categories one has attempted. One is climate dependent living. Even today is happening. Cultivation is still, conservation is still, festivals. Well, this is not only about construction, festivals. When does the Rathotsava, when does the temple, when does the church, when does the religious festivals in any religion, Buddhism, Jainism, when they happen, many of them are connected to climate. We all know that. Or Panchanga and all of them, which tells when is the annual festival of the religious shrine, is linked with climate. We all know that. Domesticity have written as under climate dependent even today. Domestic living, day-to-day living. Climate semi-dependent, taxation, governance. Of course, there's a connection between governance and climate. We don't want to go into it now. But there are many which are actually climate independent. Art and humanities and culture and philosophies. They're not linked with climate. Can we think on those lines which are climate independent and bring about a change the way we think? I've not written that there. But look at these impossible sounding remedies one is talking about. I'm sure you'll all laugh at it. You'll say, Satya, you're crazy to say that. How can we today build without electricity? There's a friend of mine who has done a house in Auroville. I happen to be in Auroville and I know him. And in the evening we were a little free and I had something else. He said, Satya, come home. I said, no, yaar, I'm planning to do this. I said, okay, what's special? Because I know about Auroville architecture. He said, there is no power in the site where I built. And the house is been built largely without electricity. I said, I want to see your house. Changed the program, went there and saw this house without electricity. Built without electricity. There's no current on the site. And he said, even whatever he got to his construction, his place, materials he brought, majority, he said, majority were procured or whatever without electricity. And then I wrote an article. I used to write for the Hindu newspaper for about 10 years. I wrote about 415 articles. So it's all available in the internet. So then I wrote an article, building without electricity, as possibly the most sustainable or the least carbon footprint house. Least embodied energy house will be that house. Sorry, we couldn't even do that in your house, sir. Buying without packaging. Sounds impossible. But I remember the younger days when I lived in this place, and there was a little small town which was there near the remote village where I was born. And then my father sold our remote place and we moved into the little place. There are about 25 shops there maybe. In those days, there was packaging, of course. I'm talking of what, 1980 late 60s, early 70s, biscuits used to come packaged. Maybe a few other things were there packaged, but most things were not. If I have to buy a book, there will be heap of book, they will give a book. If you say I want to buy a pen, there will be a little cardboard box. There will be some 25 pens inside the cardboard box. They will give you one pen. Most things were like that. The least packaging was there in those days. But now, of course, everything is packaged. Even I am today living a packaged life. My life is packaged. My life is packaged by the kind of products I buy, the way this mobile controls my life, the way the computer controls my life, the way I use Google Map if I have to travel around, the way I travel by city bus. Day for yesterday I traveled by bus for some reason, today I'm in a metro. Even that is controlling my life. The way I'm living my life today is not my choice. I've been indirectly dictated. I've been indirectly dictated how to live. So this life is dictated by something controlled somewhere else. I'm living a life which is remotely controlled by market, by productions, by manufactured goods, by communication, by the need to survive as an architect practicing in Bangalore. Some of you might have heard of this philosopher by name Henry David Thoreau. And he chose to go and live in an island for some time and writes this book called Walden. Congratulations, Mr. Henry David Thoreau. You lived in those days. Today you cannot live the life you lived in those days. Those days are gone. We're all controlled. Anyway. Imagining without images, socializing, etc. Yeah, this is a connection, environmental science as sustainable architecture. I'll go a little fast on this. I'm checking the time also on my mobile. So there have been a lot of these books which have been written, as we all recognize. One of the first books, earliest books to warn, to caution us about the nature and the destructions we are creating was by Rachel Carson. The book is titled Silent Spring, back in 1960-62 published. Incidentally, it is not still a complete list of books. There are many, many more books. These are books I have come across over the years of looking around, and so I thought of just putting this together here. There are one or two which I have not been able to really get to read, but I have read about the book elsewhere. For example, this Ecology of Architecture by Laura Zeyer. I have not really seen the book, but I've read about the book elsewhere, so I just wrote it down. But this book by Helena Norberg Hodge, Ancient Futures, very, very interesting book. And subsequently, she goes on to live in Ladakh, learn the Ladakhi language, starts a new society. Isaac, check her name out. She's the one who initiated this whole movement called happiness of economics of happiness. Sorry, many other things. I have had a chance to even listen to her here in Bangalore. Now I'll just show you very quickly a few slides, visuals from our own office architecture, to talk about how some of these can be applied when you are designing. When you are designing buildings, how we can apply ecology wherever we can is not really something which is in a very detailed analysis for you. I'll just run through the slides so that then we can go into the next discussion session. So these are some of the basic principles we have been using in our office for last about 20-25 years. I'll just read it out because I love reading these words. Again, there's nothing of Satya consultants in this. These are universal thoughts. It's just that we have adopted them in our office, letting the building breathe. Just like our body breathes, the building should breathe. Minimizing manufactured materials, already said in a different way. Beauty by materiality, natural materials. Inspired by the vernacular, going back in time. And efficient ideas at efficient cost, being cost conscious. So that's, for the sake of information, I'm just telling what is happening in these visuals. The left side is a mud wall, right side is hollow clay block wall exposed without plastering and painting, and the top is the potted filler slab. This has a small house, 30 feet wide house, elevation made with the theory of architecture, as I may say. Materials, contrast, solid surface, perforated surface, differently proportioned windows, projected volumes, recessed volumes, creating the kind of texture, pattern, contrast. Some of these are the fundamentals with which the building is created, not by creating an artificial elevation. A pavilion done with rammed earth load-bearing columns, vaulted perforated roofs with the glass on top, partly, not awful, only the left side, skylight is there, fish pond, it's a pavilion to relax and instead of a house, skylights, straight walls, curved walls, is all, see most of what one is showing is in nature. We just have picked it up from nature, that's all we have done. Natural materials, staircase done in a very different way, kind of a natural home, mostly natural materials, Kota stone flooring, granite wall, clay filler slab roofing, mud blocks, mud blocks and stone slab combination as a kind of a showcase of whatever you miss as you enter. Of course, wooden doors, windows. See, in this visual, you can only see few things which were added later by the owners. There's a little cane chair on the left side. There is a foot uh, rack there. I think, yeah, there is one shoe rack there. Part of the fridge is seen, something else is seen. Most of what you are seeing in the visual is as built, as built. So keeping it as natural as possible. But sometimes we are not able to do as natural as we want to. This was the North India Corporate Office of Namdari Group, Namdari Fresh, Namdari Seeds. But we made use of the local climatic condition of that place. There's an oval internal courtyard inside. We use this rough wall to create micro shading to reduce the heat built in. There are a couple of other theories I don't want to go into. Mutually shading walls, you can see them happening around. That's one Jatti row housing here in Bangalore. No two houses look alike, done with all natural materials inside outside. There are some plastered walls, of course, to create a pattern around. Creating courtyards inside the house. The courtyards are wonderful, of course. There can be central courtyard, side courtyard, pergola roof. So this has partly rain coming in. Half this courtyard gets rain coming into the house. Only where there is a sliding folding door, the whole door, which connects inside outside. In that we have put a glass, so the rain will not lash into the house. So roughly 2/3 of this rainwater comes in, 1/3 is protected by glass. There's a sliding folding door so that the indoor outdoor get really connected. A farmhouse, which is a low scale, this also has a rain fed kind of a small swimming pool, mini pool inside. Otherwise, all natural materials, as you can see, staggered roofs, lot of skylights, another small farmhouse, again all natural. One more standard 3-bedroom house with mud blocks, stone, traditional veranda, traditional pillar, um, rural kind of roof profiles. But then we also can try this little contemporary touch, this little contemporary touch. But again, natural materials, natural light inside, that is there. Inside courtyards, a house with more of a rural typology, very traditional entrance veranda outside, staggered volumes inside of a typical house, how it may look. Entrance to a house with, again, you can see the nature, natural materials everywhere. Now this last part is a few statements. Well, here is the, I was telling I'll share it with you later. Why we are not doing what we should be doing. Now this has been an exploration in my office practice for a long time. We have been looking at this as a question mark. Why we are not doing what we should be doing, or why we have been doing what we should not be doing, etc. A lot of these words are there. Comfort as a criteria, for example, and we all know human beings are comfort seeking animals for some reason. We don't know why. Sometimes I used to joke, if somebody asks a quiz question, what is common between missiles and human beings, or heat seeking missiles? Heat seeking missiles always seek heat, and we always seek comforts. And as long as we are seeking comforts, sorry, Earth will live with discomfort. Air conditioning. What air conditioning does is, it ensures we don't shiver in summer. We don't sweat in the summer, and we don't shiver in the winter. But we make Mother Earth sweat in and create tsunamis. And we make Mother Earth shiver. And there will be vortex in New York. The North Pole kind of condition happens in New York. So we are making the Mother Earth shiver. We are making the Mother Earth sweat. So that we don't sweat, we don't shiver. Seeking comforts. There are many more like this. One can go into each one of them, can be a small essay. Power of the surplus. And it's not merely seeking comfort. As long as we are seeking, we all seek money, name, fame, power. We all seek it. Who doesn't want name and fame and power and money and image and all of them. As long as we are seeking them, we cannot keep Mother Earth happy. It has been a very, very difficult decision to try living an eco-friendly life. Not successful, failure. But at least the fact that one has minimized on flights, one has minimized in the last 6 years, if I have to travel somewhere, I call upon people who ask me to come there, can you get me a small guest house? Or somebody can host me in their houses. I don't want to stay in hotels. Or if I have to stay in a hotel, there's a cap. The hotel room should not be more than 1,000 rupees per night, which means it's the base level hotel. And no AC, I don't need AC. Luckily my body is not yet corrupted by air conditioning. I can live anywhere between 4 degrees and 40 degrees. So I don't need AC. So these are the conditions with which one goes. Hotels, star hotels, and nowadays I even avoid going to conferences. Even the so-called conferences to look at eco-friendliness, sustainability, climate change. If I go and stay for one full day in a star hotel banquet hall, I'm a party to that carbon footprint of that conference. Is it possible to avoid? Yes, it is possible to avoid. But at the cost of losing name, losing fame, losing publicity, losing being known, well, one has to make a choice. There are many more such things one can go on saying. End of the day, what is it? We all do know, it's not about Gandhiji, it's not about many other stories, we have a lot of stories. You and I as individuals can make a major difference. And we all know about these little stories we keep hearing about. And if I am one of the reasons for global climate change, maybe in a very, 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 very minuscule way, maybe 0.0000000000001% of climate change happening in Bangalore could be because of me. But then at least I can be the same 0.0000001% solution also. At least that much I can do. If I'm taking something away from the nature, at least to that extent one can give back to nature at least. That's all one can do as an individual. Because the power of the collective today is so strong. This is something one wrote, well, again as an idea. But some of these, think before throwing, rethink before buying. Some of these is very, very easy to adopt in one's life. I can say with pride, I have been adopting this. I'm saying I won't even say even my family fully, but I think before throwing, rethink before buying. These are very simple sutras, very, very simple sutras. And there are many such things we can live with. Live at own cost and avoid living at the cost of nature. This line actually I used to talk about 10-15 years ago in a very Gandhian principle. I used to say that I should not live at others' cost. If somebody is calling me to a conference, they will say, Satya, come by flight, taxi is paid, hotel is paid, everything is paid, and I'll make my demand there saying the hotel was not clean or the AC was not okay. Tomorrow if I'm going alone to the city to meet my cousin, will I fly? Will I take a taxi? Will I go and stay in a star hotel? I will not. Because I may not have the money to do that. But if somebody is calling, I will demand that I go by flight. I'll demand that I'm put up in a 3-star hotel. I'll demand that I should have a taxi at my disposal for the whole day. I'll demand that there should be a 24-course dinner on that night, whether I may eat only 5 courses, but I'll demand that the buffet was not large enough, big enough, wide enough. Am I living at my cost or am I living at others' cost? Simple questions. If you all know how to live in our cost, there will be no cost for the earth to pay for me. But the moment I know I can live at others' cost, earth will pay my cost. Because the cost finally comes from the earth. It doesn't come from the conference organizer, somebody sponsoring. It doesn't come from the sponsor. They are making money out of some international business. And where does that money come from? By exploiting the natural resources, by extraction, by manufacturing, by processing, by transporting, by using it somewhere else. If each one of us, that's how human beings lived 200,000 years ago. That's how human beings lived 75,000 years ago. Everyone lived at their potential, at their cost. Nobody sponsored anybody 75,000 years ago. Nobody sponsored a human being. If someone was sick, they were left to die by the band. Homo sapiens. Harare very clearly says, when they were moving in groups, if anybody is sick, they were just left behind to die. There was no way they could carry them around when they were nomadics. I'm not saying we should go back to nomadic days, but we should go back and see what is that we can learn from the past. For that matter, I think, and oh, this is amazing, sir. I should talk about this. This one wrote before COVID, and I think this was part of one of the YouTube videos, which is there in my, one of the YouTube videos, which Vaishali Bhatia shot for me. And during COVID, most of these things happened. Air conditioning reduced, building construction reduced, there was hardly any conferences, dining out was minimal, electricity of course was there, okay. Flights were cancelled, globalization of course minimized. I can go on with this list. And for 2 years, the world lived by minimizing this A to Z of unsustainability. Was it a great time? In many ways, yes. Was it a bad time? In many ways, yes. The poor suffered. Yes, of course. Why did the poor suffer? There was no equity in the world. If there would have been equity in the world, poor wouldn't have suffered, despite the corona, whatever happened during the lockdown there. I was just, and then later, there's one more YouTube video where one talks about it, saying that the sustainable living, or whatever you may call it, happened out of compulsion during the COVID. It should not just happen by compulsion, it should happen by choice. It should not happen only by force, it should happen by choice. There's another YouTube video of mine somewhere around. I shall shot it. So the whole point is this, and we all know it, you know it. Climate has not changed by itself. I have changed. If I am causing climate change, I have to be the solution. And environmental science may teach us the science, but it should also teach us how to live. End of the day, if science can teach us, whether scientific institutions can teach us how to live, take the word live in any way, biological, philosophical, emotional, whatever way one takes it. Take it in any way, political, economical, local, whatever way, then there will be a different way of looking at the future. And while saying the future depends on the past, I'm very humbly saying, learnt a lot from the past. Thank you very much for your silent listening.
Thank you for sharing your valuable insights with us, sir. With your permission, now, could we proceed to take some questions?
Sir, don't ask me questions. I may not be able to answer you.
No.
You can discuss, you can share your knowledge, you can
No,
share your
I
thoughts.
just had a curiosity question. Now, Bangalore. See, Bangalore, I see a lot of stone being used. So, presumably that's because locally this is readily available. And nowadays, when people are moving away from it, is this because this stone has become kind of a desirable thing elsewhere and it's being exported rather than being local? I mean, there are two parts, right? One is you want to use a local material, but you want to also import things from fancier places. But when a place stops using its local resources, is this other part also equally important? That for some reason you like a particular kind of material, and then that place keeps, maybe bamboo from northeast or something like that.
If you permit, I'll take two words from what you have shared. One is the local, other is the why not cost, the local stone today, etc. So let's say look at the cost. There's a word called local material, and everybody says, Laurie Baker himself very humbly says how he was influenced by Mahatma Gandhi when Gandhi tells him that build only with local material, which is available within some 15 miles or something like that, I think he says. But today, we can make a distinction between local material and locally available material. Local material, locally available material. We can get something manufactured in England over here. It's locally available. It's not local. So that's one distinction we need to make. Local is still local. Locally available may come with very high embodied energy. Point number one. Second, cost, stone. One of the paradox of, now coming to architecture, one of the paradox of our construction industry is what is seemingly costly could be more ecologically beneficial, and what is seemingly cheap, well, I'm using the word cheap really in a cheap way, not just as low cost. What is seemingly low cost could be terrible to Mother Earth. Take some small example. The vitrified tile. Today, vitrified tile is ruling the roost, as we may say, for flooring tile. one of the worst ever flooring material discovered by human beings is vitrified tile. But that is the cheapest, easiest, fastest, cleanest. Name everything it is best, except it is the worst for human nature, for nature. Now, what do we do? So immediately people will go with the so-called lowest cost material and it becomes popular. So what happens? The traditional systems of construction lose out on flooring. Similar also thing with stone. Stone is an amazing material. It has the least embodied energy because it's not manufactured. Mostly it is local. Okay, today of course Rajasthan stone comes from Rajasthan to Bangalore, but traditionally I am saying it's recyclable. See, there are some principles of sustainability. Embodied energy is one of them. It has the least. Recyclability. Stone is 100% recyclable. Longevity. For example, stainless steel has high embodied energy, but because stainless steel can last long, I'm sure some of you may say that my grandmother's time the steel vessel was gifted during her marriage is still in our house. Because of longevity, stainless steel sometimes becomes eco-friendly because of longevity. Anyway, stone, absolutely long. It's not manufactured. Everything which is produced perishes. Everything which is natural stays forever. Stone natural. So one can, and then stone is also climate friendly, keeps the house cool in the daytime. We can go with that, but it has become costly. We don't get laborers, so it takes time. So naturally, it loses the attraction in the process. So what we are really looking at in our architecture and construction industry, sir, is this: there are a lot of these antitheses happening around. So then all that we have to do is to balance between the benefits and the implications, the consequences of it. Well, if I am looking at cost as a benefit, I'll lose the cheapest. I'll build a cement block and I'll floor it with vitrified. But if I'm looking at ecology at large, if I say I don't mind paying little extra cost, but there are these advantages, then I will say I don't want to build with cement. Cement and steel together contribute up to 15% of greenhouse gas emissions. That's humongous. Humongous. As an add-on, a little comical question, let me ask you. Ask the whole audience, sorry. I keep asking this question sometimes. Let us take 4 materials. You got to answer very quickly, please. Don't think for too long a time. So there are 4 materials. I'm going to mention the 4 materials and I'm going to ask you which is the cheapest of the lot. 1 liter, which is equivalent to 1 kg. I'll use the word kg. 1 kg of milk, 1 kg of cement, 1 kg of old newspaper, 1 kg of drinking water. Which is the cheapest? 1 kg of? 1 kg of newspaper is the cheapest. So when you say 1 kg of drinking water is the cheapest. Nobody else? No answer? 1 kg of milk is the cheapest. When you sell newspaper, do you know how much we get for 1 kg of newspaper today in the market? Around 15 rupees, yes. And water, drinking water, I'm referring to, yes. Cement is the cheapest. Sir, you have building a house, 50 kgs of one bag. How much does it cost today? Maximum, say there's a fluctuation. 50 kilos of cement we can buy at around 7 rupees per kg. We cannot buy newspaper at 7 rupees per kg. We cannot buy water, we cannot buy milk. One of the cheapest material available today is causing one of the maximum harm possible. Now, many people are talking about what steel and cement is doing to the earth. I'm very happy people are talking about 15% of greenhouse gas because of steel and cement. Stone is wonderful material, sir.
So, everyone has been talking about eco-friendly usage of eco-friendly material, being living with ecology, and so on. Unfortunately, what has happened is our lifestyle has changed dramatically, more tuned towards giving comforts to us, more towards leading life without much of problem. Simplest example is, of course, everyone knows about it, the usage of plastic. Plastic. Okay? So we know, everyone knows this is harmful, this is bad for health, bad for society, bad for ecology. Okay? It is not enough to say it is simply bad, but we have come to a stage where we simply cannot go back. Unless we have a solution which beats that benefit given by the plastic, one will never think of even going back. Many things which are given, benefits given by plastics are not given by any other substitute material which are being offered by different agencies. Okay, so therefore, given a situation like that, even though you are willing to be with ecology, environment, you are forced to be away from it for various reasons. Okay, so it is equally important for us to give solutions to the society, in addition to being saying to live with environment. What solution do you have?
Yes. Very well said. I teach in a college. I go there 2 days a week. I was a visiting faculty. So today when I went in the morning to sign in the principal's room, there was a red rose. So I joked, wow, somebody has given a red rose at your age. I just joked. He said, no, Satya, there is an event happening as part of the World Environment Day. And as being the principal of the architecture school, he was also invited for that event. And they gave one red rose to every of the HODs and the principals of the group. It's a group institution. And the red rose was wrapped around in a piece of plastic. So this is a contradiction we are living with, sir. This is a contradiction. Now coming to, you mentioned about unless there is an alternate given. What's the word you used, sir? I forget now. Not alternate, you said replacement, not replacement. Yeah, a substitute.
Take whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir, there was a substitute. There was. Will there be a substitute? Is up to us to decide. But there was. There was a time when people lived without plastics. Because there was no plastic, human race did not perish. Humans survived. Because there was no air conditioning, human race did not perish. Humans survived. Because there were no flights and conferences and star hotels, Homo sapiens did not perish. We have come to this age. There is enough solution for survival of our species if we go back to the past. However, but if we say we cannot go back, if we cannot go back, there is no going future either.
It's extremely difficult.
Extremely
the solution
difficult.
is very difficult,
Yes.
it's not practical.
I don't know whether it's not practical or not, but there are a lot of people today around the world now, number of people who are trying to live an eco-friendly life is going up in phenomenal rate. Large number of people are adopting lifestyle changes. People are talking about many things are happening around today. Many things. I'm in little touch with what's happening in that circle. But yes, where does it come? Mind. If this can decide, anything can be done, sir. Anything can be done. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. This Mastishkam. I believe in that, sir. I believe. But when you say it is impractical,
It is there that you have to take that the common man.
whoever comes to our office, we take it to them.
Not enough.
And that's what I said. See, by our office doing some 20 houses in a month, in a year, and a few institutional building, we cannot change. We cannot do that. Sir, there is a story. I'm sure most of you have heard of this story. It's a very common story. An old man like me is walking down the street or walking down the beach. An old man who's pessimist, who has seen life going bad, who only knows his problems compared to his earlier days. And somewhere there in the beach, there are hundreds, thousands of fish which have been washed ashore by some tidal wave. And they're all dying. They're all doing this and dying. And there's a young lady there who picks up a fish, throws it back to the sea. So this me, the old man, watches her after a while, because this me, the old man, is already frustrated, has no more hope left now. He anyway thinks I'm anyway going to die shortly, and what's the point? Let the world collapse, how does it matter? But this old man, the me, is watching this young lady, and after some time gets very curious. So walks up to the young lady and says, young lady, I've been watching you for 10 minutes. I notice that you're picking up the fish and throwing it back. And I'm pretty sure some of the fish is again getting washed ashore as such. And I don't know why are you doing this. I'm absolutely useless for that kind of a job. At that moment, the lady is holding one fish up, about to throw. Looks at me, throws it back into the sea. And she tells me, sir, if this one fish survives, if another fish survive, together they will produce 1,000,000 fish. So there's always every small action, every small action. And we have heard enough number of proverbs about it. Every small action has an impact. And every big action also has an impact. That's where one uses the word implication and consequences. So everything has an impact. And we are not doing it for sake of the collective and the humanity. It's for your own feel good, that's it. If we are into eco-friendly architecture in our office, we feel good about it, that's all. Now we are not saying we can change, mitigate the climate change.
What is your view on this EV, lithium ion they are using now in government is also promoting, and the person got the Nobel Prize, and they are wanted to erode the fossil fuels like diesel and petrol. In place of that, EV is coming. So in that way, are we contributing to the nature? Or are we going down? That's all.
Sir, this needs a lot of technical knowledge, and I'm not one of them. But we purchased an electric vehicle about 8 years ago. We bought one of those electric cars and drove it for 7 years. And also in our own office, our first house with the solar lighting happened back in 1999, thanks to Selco. And 2002, we had one house here in Bangalore with, in those days they were calling it as battery. So one battery, 4 bulb. So we did one house in those days, 2002, one battery and 4 bulbs wala house. And we must be having, I don't know now, at least some 40, 50 houses, maybe more now, which are powered by, not solar water heater, I'm talking about solar electricity as well. At least some 50 plus houses we have. So we have been actively promoting it, sir. We have been actively promoting it. Now coming to the effectiveness of it, yes, there are a whole lot of talks about it, the cadmium and the other iron, and the ores, extraction, processing, and what happens after that. There are a whole lot of discussions about it. But if you look at any great new idea which has come about, couple of years does take for the idea to stabilize. It does take. Sometimes I used to say very comically, when the wheel was discovered, I'm sure 99% of the people would not have agreed with the wheel, because that 99% would have said, for the wheel to roll on the mountains, you've got to make a road. There are no pathways in the mountains in those days, I'm saying. But one person would have said, no, wheel has a meaning. We will see, and then they would have made the path, and then slowly the wheel would have rolled around, and the whole civilization has changed because of the wheel. We don't know when, of course. So, all these ideas definitely have a validity. They have a validity. But then you see, there's nothing called singular solution to the collective problem we are facing. The problem is collective, solutions have to be also collective and hybrid. So it's not one single solution, multiple solutions. There are areas where solar is a solution. You look at what's happening in the Ladakh region with the, this person there, I forget his name, no, anyway, Wangchung, yeah. So what they are doing there, the HIAL, Himalayan Institute of Alternate Living, see, there are many things they have been doing over there, and they are depending on the solar. They have no other solution there. So there are many areas where it has applications. Maybe in some areas, not really. For example, now I don't want to name the project. There's a project which is on the way to the college where I go twice a week. They're claiming it as net zero energy project. It's one of those luxury housing by one big time developer. And I know the consultant is working. So I asked the consultant, how are they going to make this luxury housing where they're going to sell a 2 crores, 2.5 crores net zero energy building? And of course, the story is simple. They are not even installing all solar panels. They are, somebody is installing, they are paying money for somebody else to install somewhere, and they are saying this project is net zero. So there are also the other side of the story. I don't want to go into it. Well, thank you all. And my little nervousness with which one started, after a few minutes, of course, I forgot that I was a little nervous somewhere around. I think there was a way one could start connecting. You're all here for a common cause. We're all here for the common cause. I'm also here, you're also here. And I do understand when you, sir, when you say it's impractical, etc. And whatever you said, and also agreed. We human beings have become comfort-seeking animals, so it's very difficult to get back on that part. But unless we both individually and collectively take a decision about how we should live, the word how to live keeps coming again and again. And you may also remember, sir, when you came, the slides which we showed you on our alternate architecture, the last slide of that says, eco-friendly designing, actually it's not written here, but it's there. Eco-friendly design is much about how to design. Eco-friendly design is much about how to design, but more about how to live. So unless we take a decision on how to live, which is a very, very hard decision we have to take with our mind, body and heart and spirits. So unless we are able to critically think about how to live, Homo sapiens will not have a great future. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Tarun to hand over a memento.
Program. I was just sent a mail, which I've been doing for about now 15 years or 12 years now. So, being in academics, people call for seminars and juries and academic sessions. And then all colleges will have, some little plasticky thing with their college name and all, etc. They would give one. And I was taking them. And, after a few years, I must have had about some 20, 30 of them. I don't know what to do with them. And then one realized that you cannot, these mementos which come in plastic with some name and some college name, you cannot sell it to anybody. No one will buy it. You cannot, you don't feel like putting it in the BBMP dustbin. After some time, you cannot keep them anywhere. You cannot do anything with it after some time. So I started writing to everybody, please don't give me these mementos. In those days, I was not as aware as today about ecological crisis. I'm talking 15-year-old story, maybe even more. And anyway, then stopped taking these mementos completely. And then after 2-3, then I realized even when you don't write to them, they still give one. I don't know what to do with them. Then I started writing to them. Please don't give any manufactured memento to me, I will not take it. So same mail I had also sent. Thank you for respecting that opinion. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, sir.
No, I think it was an amazing start to this series of lectures, and I must congratulate my colleagues for starting this off. And we hope that there'll be many more thought-provoking talks following this. And one part of what you said really resonates. I mean, in science we think there are, of course, we are in a field and we need to do well in a particular area, but also the fact that we have that advantage of being trained to think has a much broader applicability. And if we can give back in some way, I think that's a extremely important thing that anyone who, that's why I would request, we have a lot of technology uh, possessing people, I encourage people to take up interesting projects where you are actually also giving back, and I'm sure RRA will be very happy to host that. But thank you very much for opening our mind.
It is a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion of World Environment Day. I would like to thank Professor Sathya Prakash Varanashi for his inspirational thoughts. A special mention to our waste management consultant, Srimati Nupur Tandon, for being the catalyst that helped to improve the waste management practices in our campus and hostels. With a deep sense of appreciation, we thank our unsung heroes who are all sitting in the last two rows, the gardeners and housekeepers for their untiring efforts in the process to create zero waste campus at RRI. I express my heartfelt thanks to our director, Professor Tarun Sauradeep, and administrative officer in charge, Mr. V.S. Naresh, for their continued support and encouragement. I thank all the faculty, staffs, and students for their valuable contribution and encouragement in all our efforts. Please join us for high tea. Thank you, one and all.